Hey, my name is JC. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist and cancer exercise specialist. Thank you so much for listening in today. And we are going to talk about the best leg exercises after a mastectomy. Now, this talk today is actually going to be focused on the recovery phase. So, if you haven't listened to my other podcast before talking about how to exercise after mastectomy, I recommend you listen to that because I explained what the recovery phase is and what the rebuilding phase is and all the different phases of how to exercise after a mastectomy. I create videos all the time of like how to get started with exercise, and I get a bunch of different comments of like, well, I can't do this, I can't do that, and it's because we're not understanding the different phases. Just like an athlete would have different phases in their training, you have different phases during your recovery and rebuilding process after cancer. So this is specifically about the recovery phase, which is particularly 6 to 8 weeks right after surgery. So it doesn't matter whether you're in treatment, out of treatment, whenever your surgery is, 6 to 8 weeks after that is technically your recovery phase. Now, this is going to look different for everyone. Some people might go up to 10 weeks. It really depends on, how fast your wounds are healing, what your oncologist says. When you're cleared for exercise, you might even get cleared before then, so then your recovery phase would be over. It would also depend on, whether you are doing physical therapy or not, because that's going to depend on how quickly you recover and what phase you are in. Many people get cleared to exercise, but they have no range of motion. They never did physical therapy, and that's a totally different phase. So, for starters, it is the 6 to 8 weeks after surgery, but it's also once you are cleared by a physical therapist or you have full range of motion, nothing is limiting you from exercise. That is basically your rebuilding phase, and that's why we're focusing on leg exercises. Like I said in my previous podcast, I talked about this being a great time to really focus in on your leg strength. And I literally had, one of my followers on Instagram, yeah, just message me and say, I literally cried the other day walking into the gym because I was so excited knowing that there's some exercises that I can do. I loved exercise before cancer, and it just gave me a sense of control and confidence. And I mean, obviously, it made me so happy to get that comment. But it just shows that you can do things during treatments and even after surgery. So let's get into the best exercises after a mastectomy. Okay. I am going to break it down into at-home exercises and at-gym exercises. Now, the first thing I want you to know is there is a base of what you need to do in terms of exercise. Cardio is always going to be recommended. Generally speaking, it is just walking. Brisk walk is absolutely fine. Biking is good, like on a stationary bike. Recumbent bike is one where you're sitting down, like with the back support on it, and you're just like moving your legs a little bit, kind of like if you're pedaling. That is a great exercise to do. What you don't want to go on for cardio is an elliptical, because the range of motion on the arms on the elliptical or an arc or arc elliptical, um, anything that moves the arms while you're moving your legs is going to pull on your upper body, and it's going to cause discomfort. So avoid those exercises. Just save yourself the headache right now if you're listening to this. I don't want you to hop on and try and be like, oh, I'm going to do the elliptical, and then feel pain, get discouraged, and then they'll go back to the gym again. Save yourself that headache. Treadmill is fine. Recumbent and cycling is absolutely fine as long as it's a stationary bike. That's not going to have any risk of falling. With the treadmill, anywhere between 2.6 to 3.4 is a normal walking speed. So if you don't know what level to put it on, 2.6 miles per hour, 3.4 if you're taller, above 6 foot, for example. 3.4 would be a good walking pace for you. If you're less than 5'8", anywhere between 2.6 to 3.2 is going to work for you in terms of a walking speed, assuming you don't have any hip pain or things like that that are stopping you from walking. That is a normal walking speed. So just so you know, most people walk about 3 miles per hour. That 3 miles per hour is a normal walking speed for everyone. Like if you're walking at the mall, you're walking about 3 miles per hour or so, which is about, I believe it's about a 20-minute walk or so. Anyways, that being said, I lost my train of thought after that. I got caught up with the nerdy stuff that I completely mixed up on where I was going with that. Oh, anyway, so having a foundation of walking is extremely important. It helps reduce blood clots after surgery. It helps improve circulation. It helps reduce risk of lymphedema. It just helps keep the blood and your lymphatic system flowing. Walking is a foundation. You want to do 15, 20, 30 minutes daily, what your body can handle. If you're in treatment, that's going to be different. And what I mean by treatment is, chemotherapies or radiation. You might have fatigue to work against. So 10 or 15 minutes might be better for you. But that's okay. As long as you're getting some form of movement in, the more, the better. And minimum is always best. So having yourself a minimum of 10 minutes works great, as long as we're doing that consistent. Now, from the basics, let's build upon that. What leg exercises should you be doing? Let's say you do your 10-minute walk. From there, you want to focus on 3 main movers. That's going to be your squat, your step up, and some form of a hip hinge exercise. Now, you can do these at home, you can do these at the gym. They all work great. What you don't want is you don't want to have anything on your back, because opening up your chest to hold the barbell is going to cause aches and pains on the front of the chest. So no barbell squatting for this time. Even if it's a Smith machine, no Smith machine squatting. No good mornings where you have the barbell or even a PVC pipe behind your back. You want to avoid anything in this time period that's going to put weight behind your back, because you got to open up the chest and you got to use those arms to hold it. In this time period, you don't want to hold anything more than 5 or 10 pounds, depending on the limitation that your doctor gave you. So a goblet squat for 15 pounds is out of the question. A goblet squat for 2 pounds, you're fine to do that. A goblet squat for 5 pounds, you're fine to do that. That's when you hold the weight in front of you for 5 to 10 pounds, absolutely fine. What I generally recommend when it's a lighter weight is, instead of holding the dumbbell like a goblet, how you usually do it, I want you to just turn the dumbbell on its side, and you're going to hold it horizontal or lengthwise. That's going to give you a little bit wider grip on the shoulders, and it's going to be a little bit more uncomfortable instead of being all tight up here with such a tiny weight. Just hold it a little bit wider. Generally speaking, it's more comfortable for 99% of people. And it's a lighter weight, so you're fine to do that. I don't recommend that with heavier weight. But 2, 3, 5, even up to 10 pounds, absolutely fine. Depends on the limitation that your oncologist gave you during those 6 to 8 weeks. Now, before you even get into goblet squatting, the first 2 weeks, you're just doing regular body weight squats. If you're someone who's never exercised before, doing a sit to stand from a chair, a couch, a bench is the best place to get started. You sit down, you stand up. The next variation of that is where you touch and up, or touch and go, which is your butt touches or the back of your hamstring or thigh touches, and then you stand up. You don't sit down though, it's just a touch and up. Then the next variation beyond that is where you do have, the chair behind you as a safety net. I like to call it insurance in case, your legs give out, which they won't. But, just in case, I call it insurance. You have it there, and you just hover right above it without touching, and then you're standing back up. Right? So that's just in case for balance, and like I said, just insurance. And then the last variation is where you add the weight in front of your chest, and you start the process all over. You add the weight, you do a sit to stand, you add the weight, and then you go into the touch and up, where you're just touching coming up. And then the last variation is where you do the weight without any touching of the chair, low bench, or whatever it is. So that's your progression when you are squatting. No weight, you do the 3 progressions: sit to stand, touch and up, no touching. Then once you can do no touching easily, that's when you add the weight and you start all over, sitting down, touching, and then no touching. Now that's your first main mover. Okay? The second main mover, you don't have to do all 3 of those or all 6 of those in one workout. That's not what you're doing. You're choosing one, and then you're sticking with that exercise, with that type of squat, for about 3 to 4 weeks. So let's say you're starting with, if you were pretty fit in the past, maybe you exercise a lot, you can start with a goblet squat, 2 to 5 pounds or so, and doing a touch and up. That's okay. That's your squat pattern. If you've never exercised before, this is your first time exercising, that's okay too. Glad you made it. And you're going to start with the sit to stand. That's your squat pattern. You just choose one squat pattern. You don't have to do all of them. The next one you're doing is the step up. Now, this is different than a lunge, and I'd rather you do a step up than a lunge because a lunge is going to require balance. If you need your balance or you lose your balance, you're going to have to hold on to something and it's going to put pressure on your upper body. If you have really good balance and you don't have to use your arm supported at all, or maybe you can have a little bit of light, maybe have a little bit more range of motion on the arms without any pains, lunges would be fine. I like to recommend reverse lunges. But assuming, you have neuropathy, assuming you don't have good balance, assuming you don't have the confidence to do it yet, assuming you're just starting out, putting all these factors into place, I just recommend you start with the step up. So I don't, unless I visually see somebody who feels confident, has the strength, has good balance, I don't ever recommend the lunge. So if you have those three criteria, you can do a lunge, but I don't ever recommend it. And I always recommend having support in front of you with the backward lunge. That being said, let's take that out of the equation for right now. And let's only focus on the step ups. I like to do a low step up first. So think 2 or maybe 3 inches off the ground, a small little platform. You're stepping up and then you're stepping down slowly. Now, I always like to have some sort of support in front of you. This is just for balance. You're not pressing down on it. If you have to use your hands to step up to the platform, it's either too high or too hard. Because remember, the goal of this exercise is to use your legs, not your upper body. The goal of this recovery phase is for you to rest your upper body and work your legs. So you want to use a height that you're not pressing with your upper body. That's the key here. That's the whole purpose of this phase when you were working out your lower legs. So start with 2 to 3 inches off the ground and then build up from there to what your body can handle. Yes, you're going to have a balance component to it. Absolutely fine. It's different though because most people can go up the stairs just fine. If you can't go up the stairs, then that's when you're going to do, 1 or 2 inches off the ground. But even up to a foot high is something that most people can do. Even if you have to hold the railings, for example, when you're going up the stairs, it's still a functional movement that you need to be able to do. So doing a step up, it's very functional. It's going to help you maintain your energy, your cardio, your leg strength for going up and down the stairs when you need to. So it's an extremely important exercise to be doing. It's also going to target a little bit of the glutes, hip stabilizers, which is going to further improve your balance. Now, from those 2 exercises, I always recommend you do everything standing up, not either standing up or sitting down. I don't like to recommend exercises during this phase that are lying down because think about it. When you go on the ground, you got to put your pressure on your shoulders, on your arms, and you got to put it on one elbow to then lay back down. That's more pressure than I really want you to do and more energy than I want you to waste during an exercise. So everything is always standing up or seated during this recovery phase. Once you have full range of motion, once you feel comfortable, once you have confidence, once you've been doing PT for a while and you can stand up from the ground and have that mobility, then we can do some exercises in the ground. But in this phase, I don't want you to be doing glute bridges. I don't want you to be doing clamshells on the ground. It defeats the purpose of it. The whole point of doing exercise is to build your confidence. Does that mean those exercises are bad for you? No. But when you're worried and you're scared about your shoulders and your chest and injury, if I have you do an uncomfortable exercise, you're going to get out of that gym so quickly and you're going to say, you're crazy. I don't ever want to do this again. So it's all about building your mental confidence. This is why I don't like, AI exercises or random exercises you see on YouTube or on Instagram, because you're going to try those exercises. It's going to be a safe exercise for you to do most of the time, not always. But even though it's safe, you're going to feel uncomfortable, you're going to lack confidence, and then you're not going to do the exercise again, and you're going to say, screw exercise. That's not what I want. I want you to feel confident, strong, and be able to actually build progress at the gym. So I like to take away anything that's going to come remotely close to affecting your confidence in doing an exercise. That's why I take away anything that's on the ground. Now, if you're, on the couch already because you laid down to take a nap and you want to do some glute bridges, go for it. But at the gym, I'm not going to have you stand up, sit down, lay down, stand up, sit up, lay down. Like, it's just too much wasted energy, feels uncomfortable. became redundant on that point, but I think it's very important to understand that when you're starting to exercise after cancer, your mental confidence is extremely important. So instead, once you do your squats, you do your step up. You've worked, your quads, a little bit of the glutes, a little bit of the hips. Then you're going to get into a little bit of the calf, some calf raises, accessory movements. But what I always recommend doing is ending your session with a practice exercise, a skill-based exercise. And this is a best time ever to learn and practice skill-based exercises. So squatting is a skill-based exercise. Deadlift is a skill-based exercise. And in this case, you're going to be practicing your hip hinge. You're not deadlifting the bar. You're not squatting a bar with the bar behind you. You're not doing any of that. But you are practicing pushing your hips back, making sure you're keeping your balance, keeping your legs slightly bent, and I want you to practice a hip hinge, particularly the Romanian deadlift. No weight at all, just practice on keeping that spine straight, keeping the chin tucked in, keeping a neutral spine, making sure you don't compensate by bending your knees. It's a movement that does require some learning, and since we're not adding weight, this is the best time to be practicing a skill-based exercise like the RDL, the Romanian deadlift. If you don't know how to do it, you can check out my YouTube, and I have a full explanation on how to do the Romanian deadlift so you can practice it. I like to do it at the end of the session because by this point, you're a little bit tired, you might be a little bit winded, a little bit out of breath, and it's a great time to just get the body a little bit more work without using a lot of energy. Now, you can also do it as a warm-up. That's absolutely fine. You can include that then, uh, as long as you are taking in time to practice it during this time. I think it's incredible because this exercise is going to get built into your rebuilding phase, and you're going to need to have the foundation of it. So it's way better for you to build a foundation early than start your rebuilding phase and learning the exercise. I rather by the time we get to your rebuilding phase, know how to do it already, so that way we can start to slowly add weight. And it takes time to learn how to bring your shoulders back away from the ears, squeeze the orange. Those are just different cueing that people use. Keeping your back straight, pushing the hips back, maintaining your balance. Like, it's a skill-based exercise, and it takes time to learn. There's nothing wrong with that. It's fun to do, and it's very important to do because it helps you get up and off the ground very comfortably. So building the skill during this recovery phase is extremely important. Now, those are exercises that you can do at home. If you have a gym, you like to exercise, you have a gym, you can include more exercises. These exercises are going to be great for building muscle. Now, there's exercises that build strength and some muscle. There's exercises that build a lot of muscle and some strength. Whenever you use machines are going to be better at building muscle than functional exercises. Functional exercises are going to be better at engaging your whole body than machines. So when you do a squat, you're working your legs, your calf, your core, your back, your chest, your shoulders. You're working everything. When you're sitting down on a machine and you're doing a leg press, for example, you're only working maybe your core, actually not even. You're mostly working your legs. And that's it, your quads, the muscle that's intended to grow. So machines are way better for growing the specific muscle. Functional movements like your squat, your deadlift are better for getting your whole body in sync. You want to do both of those. That's the most optimal. You don't have to do both of those, but the most optimal is to include both of those into a routine. So that being said, let's say you have a gym and you like to exercise, you have the energy for it. You start with your squat, your step up. You can do your your hip hinges right after that. Give yourself a mini break and then get into the machines. The machines are going to be your leg extensions and seated leg curls. Leg extensions is where you sit down and kick your legs up. That's going to focus on the quads. I don't recommend in this case the leg press. Reason being, the leg press is very uncomfortable to do. It's very hard to set it up properly. It's not hard to set it up properly. It's just very uncomfortable for like most people to set it up properly to get the proper range of motion on the hips to actually get any results. So I don't like leg presses. I actually hate them Most people, the machine itself doesn't fit their body properly. It can hurt their back, and when you're pressing into it, pressing your back into the bench itself can create a little bit of discomfort on the upper body. So I don't love the leg press. I generally don't recommend it. Leg extension is where you're kicking your legs up. That's absolutely fine. You can do that. You can go heavyweight. You don't have to be careful too much because the risk of hurting your upper body is very, very limited. So you're pretty much working only that isolated muscle, which is why it's great. It's an exercise that you can, go pretty heavy on, or at least moderately heavy on, as opposed to a goblet squat where you can only do, maybe less than 10 pounds. Very different. You can push yourself a little bit different with machines, which is why I recommend doing both of them. But if you don't have access to a gym, absolutely fine. You can still get a good workout with the other exercises. You're just going to get more of a benefit by combining the two. Now, the next one is the leg curl. Now, here's one that I'm also very specific with. I recommend seated, not lying down, because when you're lying down, you put your chest to the bench. Your hips are up. You got to get a full stretch on the hamstrings. But when you're going to lift your legs back towards you, you got to press your chest into the table, and you got to really brace yourself. It's a lot more pressure on the chest, shoulders, the area that's literally sensitive that I would like. So therefore, I take that exercise completely out, and I only recommend doing the seated leg curls. And that's where you're sitting down. You got your back towards the bench. You put your hand on top of the pad, your feet on top of the pad, and then you bring those feet, both ankles, underneath your chair. That is the leg curl machine. Another exercise that you can go heavy on, absolutely fine. And you can kind of push yourself a little bit more. Be careful if you're somebody who likes to brace yourself by holding onto the handles and really brace yourself into it or pull yourself into it, because that can cause some discomfort. So you don't want to go that heavy where you're creating discomfort because you're bracing yourself so hard. So that's something to be mindful of whenever you're using machines, regardless of whether it's the leg extension or the leg curl. And then the last two exercises is the abduction and the adduction machine, which is basically where you're sitting down, you put the pads either in between the legs or outside of the legs, and you're either closing your knees together or opening your knees apart. That's called the adduction, the adduction machines, where they're coming inward. The abduction is when they're going away from each other. Another great exercise for strengthening the glutes, helps with lower back pain as well, helps with stabilizing the pelvis. A lot of great benefits comes from this. This is a great exercise to be doing for a guy or a girl. And those are the main exercises I recommend. Obviously, you can still do calves. I don't recommend adding some weight on it, but I do like, elevating your feet, getting that heel to be below the toes, and then raising your heel up. Great way to actually add some more weight. Up to 10 pounds is fine generally for calf raises. I don't really love putting something above, but you can do that if you feel comfortable doing that. I don't like it because you have to add weight on top of your back, so that means you have to be able to press it away from you when you're going to put it on or put it back off, or take it back off and put it back on. So not the most comfortable exercise, but you can do the calf raise either on a machine. On the leg press machine is absolutely fine to do the calf raises on, or you can do them standing, even up to 10 pounds with a single leg or a double leg. It's absolutely fine as long as you're still holding off the balance. And those are pretty much the best exercises to be doing during the recovery phase. Now, once you get into the rebuilding phase, these exercises are going to change. Most of them are going to stay pretty similar, but we're going to be advancing them a lot more and a lot faster to harder and better exercises. Now, we talked about the foundation, which is your cardio, the exercises to be doing at home and at the gym. Now, if you ever have any struggles with fatigue, with knowing what exercises build muscle, establishing your own routine, I do have a fatigue fighting guide that helps you establish what are the best ways to reduce fatigue, what are the foods to be eating to help with fatigue, how to strengthen your legs, how to build muscle, so that you don't have any barriers stopping you from exercise during this time. I'm going to have that in the link below. And once again, I'm JC. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist and cancer exercise specialist. And it's been a pleasure talking to you about some of the best leg exercises after mastectomy. Now, next episode, I'm going to be talking about the same thing, but during the rebuilding phase. So stay tuned.
for that. Take care.